Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Emotional Support. I am your host, Alessandra Torresani. I'm so happy to be here with you today, present, alive, feeling pretty good about life. And I wanted to do a quick introduction to our guest that's going to come on in just a moment. Her name is Brooke Ashley Rose Johnson. She's an actress, a writer, a creative who has embraced the opportunity to make a positive impact, focusing on empowering youth and promoting mental health awareness. Through her visionary project, Crowning Confidence, she educates future generations about self-esteem, mental health, and bullying prevention. Brooke serves as the national ambassador for the NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, like myself. And she works closely with the largest grassroots organization in the US, along with 700 local affiliates. She tells her story of overcoming challenges with anxiety, depression, CPTSD, trauma, and ADHD. I love this episode so much because I learned so much about my own personal diagnosis of bipolar disorder and how many people are actually misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder when really they have ADHD and vice versa. And it's something that we've not really touched on or talked about, I feel like, on a maybe we've talked about it, but not on a personal one-on-one level. So Ashley is so brave and open and honest and comes on and talks so much about her ADHD and what that struggle has been like since she was a kid, when she was a professional athlete, and she then became, what she is today, Miss Alaska, and an actress and a visionary and a creative. And I just have a lot of fun with her. We tell the story of how we met at the NAMI Gala at the Beverly Hills Hotel and a little insights into the celebrities that we saw and all the fun stuff that goes along with being an ambassador and the importance of being an ambassador for an organization that's so powerful all over the world and does so much for so many people, including for myself, something personal. If you are watching a video clip of this, you can see that I'm also wearing my brand new merch. We are not alone, emotional support. I feel like I'm going to do a little mini drop for this. I was lucky enough to be sent these awesome new prints and designs, and I feel like I have a few samples left, and I don't know, maybe I'll do something about it for you guys. Anyways, I hope you're having a lovely day and a blessed day. So be sure to subscribe, like, leave a review, share it with a friend. I know it may not be a big deal for you doing that, but it's a huge deal for me, and I would really appreciate that. So I love you. Thank you for being my emotional support. And please enjoy this beautiful, fun, hilarious, but also real episode of Emotional Support with Brooke Ashley Rose Johnson. Welcome to Emotional Support. I'm Alessandra Torresani, and I am here with the gorgeous Brooke Ashley Rose Johnson. Welcome to the pod. I'm so excited to have you
Oh
here.
my gosh, thank you for having me here. I'm so happy.
This is so fun. I'm going to give a little idea of how we met, and then I'm going to go back into the history of your story. But Brooke and I both met because we are both very lucky enough to be ambassadors for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Brooke has hosted NAMICon. She's hosted some of the podcasts, and we got to really meet and bond because we sat next to each other at their gala that they had recently at the Beverly Hills Hotel. She. It was really fancy. It was really fun. We got to see awesome, inspiring stories, cool celebrities. Tiffany Haddish was like the coolest by far, and amazing performances. And I'm really jealous because Brooke got awesome photos with not only Jewel, but Tiffany. So whatever, we'll just leave it at that. That was amazing. We'll have to show those. But I'm so excited to have you here because we were sitting next to each other. We didn't know anyone there. A few people, but really you don't know anyone, right? We didn't come with a date or anything. And you really have to open up and explain who you are, why you're here, why this means a lot to you. And not for nothing, I think when you go to a gala like NAMI, it can be very intense. It can be overwhelming, especially if you are someone who has lived experience of mental illness or mental health. And so being able to be so open and honest with you, and then you being so open and honest with me was so lovely. I was like, you have to come on the pod. So, Brooke, would you like to give just a little description to the listeners of who you are, where you come from, and then we're going to dive deep into the pageant world and all of the fun things that you have going on there,
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska,
which is amazing.
and I know it's a lot more normal than you think. I always tell
Yes,
people that I grew up with a Nordstrom, so we weren't
that's actually
in
an
the
amazing
wilderness,
way to normalize it. I totally know what you mean, that
and
reference.
everyone's like, "Yeah, okay,
Cool. I get
you're
it.
from the city, I get
Yeah.
it."
Yeah.
Born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska. I grew up playing sports my whole life. I graduated with my degree in film, and in 2018, I became Miss Alaska USA. And then that's when I had started my project Crowning Confidence. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I really want to do something more than just in my own state. And so I reached out to NAMI, became a national ambassador, and they're like, awesome, share your story, like what are you all about? And I had to really think of putting a timeline on it of like, all
Sure.
right, like, or putting words on it. It's like, yeah, like I suffer with mental health, but they're like, okay, cool, what's your story? And I had to kind of figure out
What your story
everything
is.
that
Yeah.
happened on my story. And so basically, unbeknownst to me, when I was in middle school, I was suffering from depression and anxiety. I didn't want to go to school. I was losing interest in my activities. I would oversleep. I would sleep all the time on the weekends, but I had activities and things to do. So I was just really sluggish. But at the same time, I think I had this perfectionist thing about me. So when
Sure.
I would go to school, I'd be all happy.
Smile. Yeah.
But at the same time, I was self-harming myself. As I got older and kept dealing with it, because I got into high school still not having really a grasp on it, I moved away from self-harming into self-harming with food. So I would restrict my food intake. And then that turned into, and then as I got older, that stopped. And then that morphed into bulimia. And it was just this constant need to control because I felt out of control.
Sure.
So I would find all these little things that I would need to be controlled, need to control.
Yeah.
And finally, when I was 19, when I got to college, I finally had a therapist that I spoke to, and I cried and I was telling her what was going on. And she finally put words to it. She was like, oh, this is depression. This is anxiety. And a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, so this is real. Everything that I'm feeling isn't not. Yeah, I feel validated because I had asked a friend maybe months before this, do you get butterflies in your stomach and feel nervous all day and can't eat? And they're like,
no.
no, I don't know what that feeling is. And I'm like,
Cool. Awesome.
so then that summer I got on medication for the first time. And 2 weeks later, I was having an argument with my boyfriend at the time. And that anxiety feeling wasn't there. And I
Wow.
was like, oh my gosh, this works. Okay. All right. So between then and throughout my adulthood, I had been off and on medication. It would work for a while, then it
Sure.
wouldn't work, then it would work for a while, then it wouldn't work. And then in 2019, I had a full mental breakdown. Ended up in downtown where you can get free mental health care support because I didn't have any support.
In downtown Anchorage?
LA.
And downtown LA. Okay. Okay.
Downtown LA. Yeah, I guess in the middle. So I was in Alaska and then I went to Missouri and finished school. I moved back to Alaska, was Miss Alaska USA, went to Miss USA, and then when I was done with that, I was like, awesome, I'm going to pursue my acting career. So then I moved to LA. So I go to this mental health clinic and I was telling them my symptoms. I had what I believe was a hypomanic episode. And they were like, oh, awesome. And then they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And I was like, okay, I guess we'll go with that. That medication didn't help at all. And so then I ended up in an intensive outpatient.
No.
And luckily, that psychiatrist was like, no, just because you have one hypomanic episode doesn't make you have bipolar disorder.
Sure.
So I think you're still dealing with depression and anxiety. I think the stress of your life just got so intense that you just went into an episode. And I had never had one since, but I'm so glad. I mean, like I got misdiagnosed there for a hot second.
What was the episode that you had?
So
I don't mean to pry, but seeing
No,
as that
you're
I
fine.
live with bipolar disorder, I'm so curious, like, I
Mhm.
think that's something that I've learned hosting this podcast and like my own lived experience is so many people are misdiagnosed, and it takes, I think the average is 10 years to be properly diagnosed with any sort of mental illness being the correct one. And I was misdiagnosed with, oh, you just have depression. They put me on antidepressants in high school, and it made my highs higher and my lows lower. It made me have suicidal ideations, suicidal actions. This was not who I was. And then when I was put on the bipolar medication 10 years later, I finally was feeling like
leveled out.
myself again. Yeah. So I'm so curious, like,
Yeah.
what was it that they had you go on that made that change?
So the funny thing about like being like a mental health advocate, and at this point I had been with NAMI for, 4 years or 3 years or so. If you give me like a mental health test, oh, I got it. Like I know all the
Yeah.
symptoms of everything.
Yep.
And so one day I'm like going through a stressful time period, but one day I woke up and I slept like 3 hours but I was awake. I had no coffee. I had no caffeine. I was awake. I got up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I start cleaning my apartment and I was like, oh, I got a little energy. Oh, this feels good.
Yeah.
Okay. Clean my apartment, run errands. And then I was like, let's go to the mall. So I go to the mall, spend like $200. But usually at this point, I would like be very aware of my pocket, like
Sure.
I was trying to save money. Like
Yep.
I'm still new to LA. Like I was trying to, nope, no care in the world. I was just like, whatever. Let me get some new clothes. I'm like calling people like, oh my gosh, how you doing? Mind you, like a couple days ago, like I was like not doing okay. So the next day, it keeps happening. I'm awake. And then I go, something's off.
Huh.
Something's off. And
You just knew in your heart.
The funniest thing about this is, so I used to be in your own voice and the ending to silence presenter for NAMI, which for those who aren't familiar, in the NAMI affiliates in like cities, they have like smaller organizations that do things locally. So I would go to schools with NAMI West LA and do speaking engagements at the schools with NAMI West LA. And I was also a national ambassador. So all encompassing NAMI.
I love that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I go to, again, this speech was probably like 8 in the morning. I slept like 2 hours. Woke up. I'm at there doing all the things. And at the time, my like lead presenter, who's like an adult usually, like an adult.
Yeah, an older human.
His son had actually his story was kind of it was about like supporting his son through his diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And so I asked him, I was like, I think I'm going through some type of mania. And he's like, you think so? I was like, I think so. I haven't slept in like 2 days. I'm wired and I haven't had any coffee. And I don't like, I'm very happy. And it's a very strange, and I think I think it's because I sounded so logical about it.
And together.
And it didn't alarm him much. And I was like, okay, but then my thought process was like, oh, okay, well, if I feel this good, it's going to go the other direction really soon. So the hypomanic episode lasted maybe a week or so. And I'm with my like boyfriend at the time. We go to his high school graduation and it wasn't a great trip, but like we get home and all of a sudden
the crash.
My God, the suicidal ideations just came out of nowhere. And it was so jarring. And it was just so like, what is happening? And it was like really scary. I like disappeared on my friends.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I
Like,
like
yeah.
disappeared on my friends for 24 hours. People started looking for me. I was like threatening everyone that I was gonna, unalive myself. I was gonna jump off the balcony. And then eventually it started to just keel off into just regular
Mhm.
depression. But I was like, what is going on? And yeah, then that's when I went and they had diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. But when I took the medication, I forgot what they gave me, but it knocked me out. I like slept for 12 hours. Like I don't know what I forgot what they Abilify, I
Wow.
think that's what they gave me. They gave me. They also saw me for 5 minutes. They didn't
Yeah.
hear any of this. And yeah, knocked me out. I was in a haze for like 2 days. And over the course of like a month of this happening, I like lost 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I like didn't go to work for like 2 weeks because I was just like the high, it was insane, and then like the low, so I just like didn't go to work for 2 weeks. And eventually, yeah, go into the IOP, told them everything that had happened, but like went through my other symptoms that I had, and he was like, no, 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 like you don't have bipolar disorder, but people can have episodes in their life, but one doesn't necessarily make you have one because yours was just hypomanic. But yeah, it was insane. But I was like, I mean, the mania was a little fun. I have to say, I got a
Can
lot
I tell
done.
you, like,
I got a lot done.
I am not a doctor. I'm not claiming to be a doctor. I am not trying to be a doctor, but literally everything you're saying is like screaming bipolar 1 disorder to me
Right?
because like not to like bore my audience and like get into like my story again, but like
Mhm.
just to say there were a few things that happened to me when I was younger where it was perfectionism. I was a dance competition girl. Like I'm talking when I was young, 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 young.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Which is very similar to beauty pageants, right? Where it's like the perfectionism, you have to be on, you're
Mhm.
always smiling, you're always performing. And like, I fucking loved it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I loved it with my heart. I was not forced, to do it. It's like what made me a performer. But there were certain things where I didn't want to cross the threshold from one side of the front door to the next because I was afraid I wasn't going to be better than the day before. Like I had such severe perfectionism. That was in my dance studio, my karate studio, leaving the house. I didn't want to go to school because if I wasn't better than the day before, I didn't want to do it. And this
Mhm.
was like starting at 5 years old. And they had to take me to hypnotherapists. Like they're like, what is going on? Like no one could give answers. And one of the things that happened to me cut to when I was like 21 and properly diagnosed with bipolar disorder was they said one of the key factors that I did not have on the checklist that is like a very big sign of bipolar disorder when you list all the things. I'm not talking about one in general. I'm talking about all the things
Mhm.
is anorexia or bulimia is eating disorders because it's a type of control. And that was something that I never had.
Lovely.
Like, and I don't know what it was that in my brain, the molecule like didn't trigger something to have that, but that was something that was not said. So when I gave my checklist of like, this is what I suffer from X, Y, and Z, that was not one of the things that was on there where they would have been like, control. Oh, that makes sense. So I'm not saying that this is what you live with. I'm not diagnosing you, but I'm just letting you know
But it's
that
interesting.
it is fascinating to me that
Uh-huh.
this is something that you bring up perfectionism, and a lot of people have been on my podcast and no one fucking talks about perfectionism of it being such a mental like overload, and I still have that, and I find myself needing to control every situation I'm in. Being a mom is like the hardest thing in the world for me because you have to relinquish that like control of perfectionism.
Well, I have an added layer to this
So
because
please, but
the
continue.
story
But
is
I'm just saying,
crazy.
I relate
Yeah.
so much. Like I understand. I'm not saying that this is what you have, but it's
Yeah.
so fascinating to me,
Mhm.
and it's so. Thank you for sharing this. Like, wow. Okay, so keep
Yep.
going with your layer. Keep going.
Oh my god. Okay, so I go to the IOP, I get stabilized as much as you can be. And then whatever time goes on, then the pandemic happens, that gets bad. I get on like more medication and I wasn't depressed, but like also I had like I was on, are we allowed to say like names of,
Yeah, I
okay,
mean,
cool.
there's no
Um,
sponsors here.
cool. I was on Zoloft for a really long
Okay.
time with my new psychiatrist, and but it gave me horrible insomnia, and it gave me horrible. I had night terrors and nightmares, night sweats.
No.
But my doctor was like, "But are you depressed?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "So it's working." And I'm like, I guess.
Is it?
My quality of life is pretty rough, I have to say. So then I got on Ambien, which like, oh my God, that drug is strong.
Now, Ambien is sleeping, correct?
Yes, it is a extremely powerful sleep medication. That's the medication that Tiger Woods,
Tiger Wolf. I like that. Tiger Woods. Yes.
Tiger Woods was on when he got pulled over in his car.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can sleepwalk on it. Like if you don't take it and go to sleep, like all of a sudden you start hallucinating.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's highly addictive. So like a lot of people don't get put on it. It was the pandemic when I had gotten put on it. So like honestly, like so much of that of like 2020 and 2021 are like blocked out of my life because I don't
It's a blur.
remember it. It's a blur.
Sure.
It's a blur. But eventually I stopped taking the antidepressants. It was not helping me. Stopped taking Ambien. It was not helping me. And I was just like free balling it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So fast forward to maybe like 7 months ago, one of my girlfriends who has ADHD was telling me about her symptoms. And I was like, wow, that seems so relatable.
Yeah.
I feel that. I feel the things.
Sure.
And all of a sudden one day, like I woke up and I like called my best friend, Michelle. I was crying on the phone because she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I can't get up. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I have stuff to do, but I like cannot get myself to do the dishes. I cannot get myself to get things done. And it's my day off. I can't get up. And like, I'm an adult. Get it together.
Right.
And all of a sudden, two of my friends coincidentally started telling me about how they think they might have ADHD.
Wow.
And so I start heavily looking into all these symptoms, right? And did you know a lot of people with ADHD get misdiagnosed with bipolar
disorder? I mean, listen,
because of how that list you were talking about, it mixes a lot, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of people with ADHD also suffer with like eating disorder problems because we have a tendency to hyperfixate on food. We have a tendency to overindulge because it gives us like dopamine. So then I would like have this, I would eat a lot at once.
Mm-hmm.
But executive functioning was like my biggest issue. I could not get up. And so, you know, everyone has like their thing with like Adderall and all this kind of stuff. But I found a new psychiatrist, told her my symptoms, and I was really nervous because people nowadays do not prescribe like Adderall to people because it's so addictive and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I told her, I was like, I am struggling. I am, you know, in my 30s. I feel like I feel like I should be way further in my life. I have like all these things I want to do and I can't get up and do them. And it's very frustrating. And that makes me really depressed. I feel like as a person, I'm okay. And then it's like I get really stressed and then I get anxious and then I'm sad. And then I go into this deep depression for months because I feel inadequate and unhappy. And then all of a sudden I spin out, I find things for control.
Yeah.
And it goes crazy. So she prescribes me with Adderall and like a low dose. And the first day I take it,
your life changed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The sky had color.
Mm-hmm.
Everything all of a sudden became colorful instead of gray.
Yeah.
And I like didn't hate everything. And I recently had like my last session with my psychiatrist because, you know, they have to check up because they don't, it's not like a refill situation. You have to get a new prescription every time. And she's like, so how you doing? How are you taking it? How's it? And I said, girl, I wrote a whole like web series.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. My career is moving forward. Like I'm so productive, but not in this like obsessed, crazy productive. It's like, wow, I can get up and go do the dishes. I can
do the everyday activities. Right.
I'm going to clean my room. I'm going to like get up and go for a walk and like not sit on my couch and get stuck.
But you know, it's so fascinating that you're the first person to ever talk about the similarities between ADHD and bipolar disorder. And I think what's so fascinating is I have two friends that the top of my head I can think of. I'm not going to name them, but I can know them. And I know that they are very open and honest about their ADHD. And I don't
Mhm.
know a lot about ADHD, which is funny, like you think I would, but it's not really talked about a lot in the mental health space. It's always usually depression and bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Like there's these ADHD always seems to be a secondary, not a
Mhm.
secondary diagnosis, but on this podcast, it's always a secondary thing to someone else living with X, Y, and Z, right?
Mhm.
But my two friends that I'm thinking of that have ADHD and are diagnosed and are on medication, the impulsiveness, the hyperfixation, the food like the food obsessiveness, I can think of them going out and shopping and, we're not supposed to be out shopping, we're supposed to be doing something else, and they go and they spend an excessive amount of money that they just don't, and I know, like, logically, they're like, "I don't really need this." It's not even that they can't afford it, they're just logically, "I don't need this," but I can see them spinning out, and it's so
It's so
I'm
interesting, isn't
so
it?
thankful that you came on this podcast to talk about this because I'm now understanding them as humans so much more and understanding where the similarities and why we get along so well because I didn't realize that I see you, in that way.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Can I ask a quick question about your beauty pageants? Like
Yeah.
I want to get back to the ADHD, but something that I wrote down that I really wanted to talk about was I want to talk about the pressures of the beauty pageant world. How old were you when you started on your journey, if you will, to become Miss Alaska? Because I wonder if as someone who's has the experience of dance competitions and doing it at a young age and feeling that pressure of like the competition and everything, Oh, how old were you? And kind of explain that world. Like, did you feel that pressure, or was it so fun for you, you didn't care?
Okay, so I have a curveball for you.
Okay.
So actually, so when you were doing dance competitions, when you were younger, I was like a very like high achieving athlete when I
Okay.
was younger. So I started playing basketball, softball, I did track.
Wow.
But basketball was like the bread and butter. My
Wow.
family is sports family. My sister got a full ride in basketball. So it was basketball.
Yeah.
So when you were doing your dance competitions, I was like in travel team. I was
Mm,
playing through the summer. I was playing in the fall. I was playing all year. I was playing on competitive leagues. I had like private sessions, endurance sessions. And so when people ask me about like the pressure of pageants, I'm like, honestly, like I feel like it was less pressure
then high performance
because
athlete.
I was such a high performance athlete. Like actually, so you know Allison Stoner. So she has
Yes.
a podcast where she talks about like child actors and like the pressure that they had as like a high achieving artist.
Yes.
And like obviously I was not a child actor, but I like relate so much
Yes.
to the pressure of
Yes.
like being a job.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it was not a joke in my house. It was
No.
like you're getting up and we're going to practice and you're going to a game. Oh, you lost a game? Okay, well, you're doing suicides and then you got to do this and you have practice 3 times a week. You go to school, okay, then you have practice. You have practice on the weekend. And then when you get a little older, all right, well, we're traveling to the lower 48 and we're going to tournaments because you're 13, but we need to start scouting colleges for you. We got to figure that out. Like it was my life. That was it.
Hmm.
That was all I did. And I crashed out when
Mm.
I was like my basketball career ended when I was like 14, and that sounds really young, but mind you, I've been
No,
playing since
you've
I
been
was
doing that
like
your whole life. Yeah.
6,
Yeah,
7.
yeah, and in an intense way. My cousins were intense
Intense.
swimmers and track and college,
Yeah.
scholarships, almost went to the Olympics for swimming.
Yeah.
I know what that's like. It's being a high performance athlete is on another level, especially when you're a child. And
Yeah.
it's all fun and games. Like I'm a mom and like my daughter Lady loves to play soccer and she loves dance and she's like getting into all these new cool things. But I'm also very aware of like, wow, I see the trajectory where if she is really good at something, like how you do pursue that because you're like, look, that's a
This
talent
is
and
your
we need to pursue that.
yeah.
And it's that
Yeah.
balance of now being a parent, being like, my mom never wanted me to pursue being an actor or being a, dance competition girl, but that was something that I loved and it was my passion. And
Mhm.
I wanted to do that. That was going to be my life. Even at a young age, I knew that in my heart and soul. So when you
Mhm.
see a kid really wanting that, it's that balance of, well, how do you allow them still to have the fun, but also know,
Mhm.
hey, this could be a career. And like,
Yeah.
guess what? Careers in the athletic world specifically, they start at kindergarten. Like you are
Yes.
you are you are starting young, you know.
Yes, and I lost the passion. It became not fun for me anymore, but
Mm.
I had always been like an artist. I always knew I wanted to be an
Sure.
actor. I always knew I loved dancing, all that kind of stuff. And I quit. Like my mom was like, "All right, cool. We have to get you ready for tryouts, in the fall." I said, I'm not playing anymore."
Wow.
And that was very unfun to deal with.
How were your parents? No, was your sister older than you?
Yeah, she's like 6 or 7 years older than me,
So
so
they
she
had already experienced that.
yeah.
So were
And
they so disappointed in you?
yeah.
Yeah, and that was tough.
And not even disappointed, like, I think my mom was pissed
Yeah, sure.
because I
It's a
think,
lot of
like,
time and money.
a lot of time and money, I think there was a level
Yeah,
of, like, "What are you gonna do with your life?" Because this
yeah,
was our trajectory, and then I think I finally got them to come around to, like, "No, no, but, like, I'm talented in these other ways, like, give me a
sure.
chance.
Yeah.
I really wanna get into dance into dance."
And being an athlete like you were, I'm sure you were an incredible dancer. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, and it really sucks because, like, with, like, mental health and the pressure, like, my, like, self-harming, my, like, eating disorder, my depression was at its lowest, like, right at
mm,
the end
hmm,
of sports. That was when it was really ramping up. It was
sure,
bad. Like, I would be hiding all of my, like, my cuts on my arm with my, like, wristbands,
sure.
like, I dealt with bullying on the team. It was very unfun, and, like, I lost the passion from it and at a very young age, which like sucks because I was really good and I think I had natural talent for it.
Do you
That
think if you
pressure
didn't have
became like a pressure cooker.
that's what I mean. Do you
And
think if you didn't have the pressure from other people, you would continue on? Or do you think it was just the pressure from yourself as well?
I think it was both. I think
Mhm.
it was both because my parents, which like it's not a bad thing, like they were
No,
very involved, which is like a blessing because some kids' parents
sure.
just drop you off and
Yes.
they don't care about what you do. But my parents were very involved. So if I didn't do something good in practice, I'd be mad at myself, but then I got it at home.
Yeah. Right, right, right.
It was coming from all angles, and then I hated myself.
Mm,
And then I was just like you were saying, I would hate going to practice because it's like, what am I gonna just get yelled at again?
yeah.
Am I gonna miss another shot?
Sure,
Am I gonna
sure, sure.
mess up this play again? I hate being here. And I would act sick. Then I'd get yelled at for not going to girl.
It never
It was that whole
stopped.
thing.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
got bad. So to answer your question about pageantry, so I did a baby pageant when I was a little kid, but it was just for fun.
Cute.
And when I got older, I did dance and acting in high school.
Okay.
That was my thing. I was like, cute, I'm going to go do acting in college. That took a different route. But one day, my friend in high school had competed in a pageant and they were doing it again that next year. It was when I had moved back to Alaska briefly
Hmm.
in college. And I was like, let me do this pageant. Like,
Yeah.
why not? And I'm competitive, right? I have a
Yeah.
competitive nature. I pick things up really quickly and I got second runner up in that pageant. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing this again. And what's funny about this is so that next year comes around, someone had advised me to try Miss Alaska USA.
Mm,
But that was significantly more expensive. It was like, oh, this is the pageant that goes to Miss USA. And honestly, like I didn't really have support from my
right.
family. They were kind of like, well, it's kind of expensive. Like,
It,
why don't you
it,
do the
it
other
is
one?
it is an expensive journey. Yes.
It's expensive. And so, but I was like, no, I'm going to do it. So I fundraised all the money, I competed, and I got first runner up that year. And I was like, okay, well, now I got to come back. Well, I got a scholarship for school, and that's when I went to school in Missouri. So I took like a 2-year break, came back to Alaska 2 years later, competed again. So excited, trained. I got first runner up again.
No.
And I was like, oh my
You're like, girl, I
God.
just want to get this.
And there's a thing that we say in pageants where you're not competing against the other girls, you're competing against yourself.
Yeah.
So as much as like there's like a lot of stigma of pressure and negativity wise, like with your body, with how you talk, that was kind of how I went into it. And we call this a pageant patty, like I
Mm,
straightened my hair. I like like I did my makeup a certain way. Like I wore certain outfits that like all the other girls wore. And it wasn't until that second time that I lost, I had to really ask myself, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not you.
are you doing this because you want to be perfect?
Yeah.
Or are you doing this because you actually want to help people? And I finally was like, I want to help people. So this next year, I'm going to talk about mental health awareness and actually speak about my journey publicly for the first time ever, because I feel like I really could make a difference and I do want to help people. I never really wanted to admit that to myself because I thought you had to be perfect.
Right.
So that next year, my hair was curly. I invested more in like what I was wearing and I found my voice. And when I spoke in my interview, I spoke about how like I was helping young adults in this organization I was a part of, about like suicide awareness and mental health awareness, talked about my journey when I was younger and getting on medication when I was 19, but I want to help kids now. And like not a lot of people, specifically in like 2018, 2017, were really talking about it.
No,
We're
not at
talking
all.
about a lot more now,
Right.
but like really, really broad. Not really. And so the end of the pageant comes and I'm the last two standing. And I won that year. And it was the first time that I had said to myself, like my voice actually does matter. Like people actually care about what I have to say. Because at that point, I didn't think anyone cared about what I had to say. I don't think anyone cared about me at all. And it was like, oh, you are enough. Like you being authentic is enough.
Yeah.
And when, training came for, Miss USA, of course, the like competition part starts to get a little stressful and like the pressure kind of ramps up a little bit because you're comparing yourself to other people in your class. But yeah, it's definitely more on you because you're competing against yourself. So that pressure definitely comes from like, okay, how can I one up myself? What have I not done? So then, I'm changing my hair. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm changing things to, elevate. And I definitely elevated a lot. But I think that pressure definitely wasn't as bad as when I played basketball when I was
You play
younger.
basketball.
Because this is actually something I was passionate about
Well,
and I was
that's what I
happy
was
to
going to
do.
say. You wanted to be there. You wanted to do that. You
I
wanted
wanted
to
to. And I'm
succeed.
a performer. So like I
Yes.
loved being on stage. Get me
Yes.
on a stage.
Yes. And you know
Let
what?
me walk.
Also, I think the reason why, I mean, I'm not a judge, but I think the reason why you won Miss Alaska is because you were so open and honest. And, that's why I always tell people when you're ready to share your story, you never know the impact your story can make. And look, there could have been a judge there that secretly, had lived the same experience that you did and resonated with that. There could have been so many factors that were never even spoken about as to why you shine so brightly. I want to talk about your crowning confidence that you started, because I think that when you shared with me what you do with crowning confidence, I was just so blown away. I just think it's so special. And I want to know, well, explain a little bit about what it is, but also how we as listeners, we as myself, Alessandra, how I can bring that into my own world and maybe do some sort of crowning confidence myself for others.
Yeah. So, probably a month after I won Miss Alaska USA, I like hit the ground running. I was like, what am I going to do to help people, So I was on Facebook just scrolling and randomly a Facebook post from a mom popped up about her little girl that was getting bullied.
No.
And from her, she was wearing like an Elsa costume and they were calling her fat. They were calling her all these names. And I was like, what is going on? So I reached out to the mom randomly and I was like, hey, I'm Miss Last USA. Like, would it be helpful if I send her a crown and like a video just to, like, make her feel better? Because I read this and it's just like really horrific and sad. Like I feel like I have this honor to wear this shiny hat on my head. Like I'm going to use it, because little kids look at you and they're like, oh my God, you're a
Princess.
princess.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, I'm super princess. I'm going to fix everything.
I'm a real princess.
I'm a real princess.
Yeah.
So her name's Queen Hayden, and I sent her a crown video. And by this point, the video, what she had posted when she was 4, And now at that time she was 7. And her mom was so happy about it, and we still stay in touch. And like years later, she had posted something and tagged me, and it was like, Miss Alaska changed my daughter's life, and she was so sweet for reaching out
Wow.
to her. And after her reaction, I kind of was like, well, I'm sure there's a ton of other girls. And
Sure.
also, I remember how I felt like crap in middle school. Dang, I wish a princess gave me a crown, or just looked at me and said that
Sure.
I see you and you matter,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know?
Sure.
And I was like, okay, what are we going to do with this? So it started as me going to schools in Alaska. And the first school I went to was my middle school.
Wow.
And I went to the
Cool.
same class with my same teacher that I would sit in her classroom during lunch because girls were bullying me. And I'd sit in her classroom and cry and be sad. And so I called her up and I was like, hey, can I do a presentation at school? She was like, yeah, would love to. So I go and I tell them my story and talk about self-esteem and talk about depression and anxiety. But I was very much like, I know you guys are all looking at this crown on my head, but I sat exactly where you were sitting. And it's not going to be like this forever. I promise.
No.
And then we get up and I made up a crown and confidence creed. And so we all get up, I crown all the girls because I'm like, oh my gosh, we see Miss Congeniality, and everyone kind of wants to know what that feels like.
Yeah, of course. I want to know what that feels like.
Right. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to crown all these little girls. So I would send them up one at a time, give their crowning moment, take a picture. And then when I have everyone crown, we say our affirmations, I am confident, I am beautiful, I am amazing, and I am a queen. I'm a queen. And they take their crown with them, and hopefully they take, that little bit of a message inside of them. And what started happening, after a couple schools, kids would come up to me after we were done. And one of these little girls was like, I'm really sad, I'm really depressed. And I'm like, okay. And it's weird because you're there's boundaries, obviously. I can't message a little girl on Instagram.
Right.
So I'd be like, okay, well, I would try to help her find resources. I was like, have we spoken to the counselor? And she's like, yeah. And she was like, I'm having a really hard time at home. So I'd be like, okay, well, you can't message me directly, but message the Miss Alaska USA page. Yes. If you want some guidance, if you want me to send you more resources, absolutely, sure. I would send them stuff on our title holder page.
Mm-hmm.
But it was actually, really was helping kids, and it seemed it was I was the trusted adult.
That's so wonderful.
And that's the biggest thing is they just want someone to talk to, because I wanted someone to talk to.
Yeah.
No one cared. I had went under the radar, and now knowing I have ADHD, it's oh my gosh, I had so many issues in school that no one helped me with.
Yes.
I had so many red flags that I went under the radar. Nobody cared. Even when I did speak up to somebody, it was you'd get in trouble, because back in our day, in the early 2000s, if you were suspected of cutting or drinking or doing some bad teenage stuff, they'd call your parents. You'd go to the nurse's office and you get in trouble.
Yeah.
There was no safe space for kids.
There was no, hi, or can we help you, instead of just saying that you're a bad person,
Literally.
You're a bad kid.
And I'm like, no, I don't want you to feel that. So every time I had, a presentation, I would try to curate this safe space for them and try to figure out something within that little allotted time. So I was doing that for my year. And then I kind of had stopped doing it when I gave up my title, because I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? And a couple years ago, another NAMI affiliate, I think in the high desert, they had reached out to me to do a speech at their youth conference. And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And they were like, can you do the crowning confidence? And I was like, oh, people still want to do that? Because I had felt that no one would care that a queen wasn't crowning them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just something that I put on myself.
That's on you. Yeah.
And that's not true at all.
No, they love
Because
that.
I went and did the presentation, and little girls, adults, they came on stage. It was just they're light lit.
Sure.
They just got this confidence within themselves. So I was like, okay, let's make this a thing. So fast forward to another like 2 years, I got asked to speak on a panel for the Mental Wellness Expo in that's hosted by Charlemagne the God in New York last fall. And they were like, "Do you have merchandise? Do you have something you want to bring?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And my friend was like,
Crowns.
"No, you sure do." And I was like, "I'm not bringing a ton of plastic crowns to New York." And she's like, "We don't have to." So we created crowning confidence kits. So they're kits with a crown pin, a mirror, and a card with affirmations on it. So it's like adults now can give it to their niece, their daughter, their
Yeah.
nephew.
Whoever.
But again, I also found that after our panel, I was giving the kits out after I told everyone about it. And there was a girl that was in middle school that was at the expo that ended up speaking to me and saying that she was getting bullied and she was sad. And, I spoke life into her. But then all these adults came up to me and they were like, "Can I have one? Can I have one for me? I really just want one for me. Do I have to give it to a little girl?" And I was like, "No, no, it's for you." And so I think that was like the beauty that I was seeing, because I was putting myself in a box.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, everyone wants to feel beautiful. Everyone wants to have their crowning moment and give themselves affirmation. So I made it so that you can take it and you don't have to necessarily have to be crowned by me or like have this,
But
you
let
know
me
what I
tell
mean? And I'm
you,
like,
I
wow.
love this so much because my daughter, like, I want to make sure that she has. Look, I was very lucky to have a mom that gave me the affirmations that I needed over and over and over. Like, I never felt a lack of self confidence. Like, I never felt that. But I want to make sure that in this state of the world that we're in, where everyone seems to just be
Yeah.
putting everyone down and
Yeah.
negativity and anger, I want my daughter to be brave. I want her to feel beautiful. I want her to be kind. I want her to just do this. So we do these affirmations every day in the mirror. And it's like,
Yeah.
seems so silly, like when you say it out loud. But then I'm like, oh, and
It's
then as I'm
not.
looking at myself doing it, I'm like, oh my God, I needed to hear this,
To
So
hear
you
that
realize,
I'm
like,
smart.
I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm kind. But you realize
Yeah.
that as an adult, like, it's not just for kids. Like, you need this as well. So that's why, Brooke, I'm so happy that you did that. And I'm so happy that you continue to do that. You are
Thank
just
you.
such a bright light. And I can't wait to crown my daughter with her, little crown and do the affirmations. And I want
Yeah.
to, if you're still making the kits, I'd love to have a link that we can put in the bio so people can get those kits. Cause I think that
Oh my gosh, yeah,
it's
I have
so
to.
easy.
Right now I've been making them like per event,
Yeah.
specific, I guess you could say.
Yes.
But yeah,
But
I'd
I'll
love
have the
to
link for
make
everyone
more.
to contact you and have specific
Yeah.
ones. But Brooke, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you my final question that I ask everyone. What
Okay.
is your emotional support?
Oh, that's a great question.
You're like, oh no.
I don't know. I'd say my emotional support right now, probably my dad has been really helpful.
Oh,
I think we went through like a lot of ups and downs as like daddy daughter. Like I was such a daddy's girl, but I think there was a lot of times where like maybe we disconnected. And a couple years ago, we like had some really open and honest conversations. And now I feel like if I ever need to call someone and feel loved, then I definitely reach out to him. And that's been really helpful because for a long time I really felt like no one cared about me. And he's like, "No, I do." And so even just hearing it is like, "Oh
yeah.
wow. That makes a difference."
It does make a difference. Well, I just love and adore you. I think you're so beautiful inside and out, and you're such a
You
bright
too.
light. Thank you. I'm going to have all the links for Brooke below. So be sure to check it out, follow her, give her some love, and bring the crowning confidence within you. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.